On the 20th of December, 1998, in the cold winter air of a Parisian suburb, a child was born who would eventually carry the dreams of an entire nation on his shoulders. This was just 6 short months after France had lifted their first ever World Cup trophy on home soil, a moment of national unity that changed the country forever. But while the legends of '98 like Zinedine Zidane were celebrating their peak, the next king of French football was just beginning his life in a place the brochures rarely mention. Kylian Mbappé was born in Bondi, a town located in the northeastern suburbs of Paris. To the outside world, Bondi was often synonymous with struggle. It was a sensitive urban zone, a place known for high crime rates, social unrest, and poverty. It was the kind of place people tried to leave, not a place where world-class superstars were expected to grow. Kylian's upbringing was far from one of luxury, but it was rich in athletic heritage and discipline. He was the son of 2 immigrant parents who understood the grit required to succeed. His mother, Faiza Lamari, was a powerhouse in her own right, an Algerian handball player who competed at a high level, and instilled in Kylian a sense of fierce competition and mental toughness. His father, Wilfred Mbappé, came from Cameroon and was a dedicated football coach at the local club, AS Bondi. From the moment Kylian could walk, he had a ball at his feet. Wilfred didn't just coach his son, he mentored him, protecting him from the distractions of the neighborhood while honing a talent that was clearly supernatural. The family was completed by his younger brother, Ethan, who followed in his brother's footsteps, and an adopted brother, Jair's Kembo Ekoko, who also became a professional footballer. At the tender age of 6, Kylian officially began his footballing journey at AS Bondi. Even then, the gap between him and the other children was astronomical. While other kids were learning the basics of how to kick a ball, Kylian was already manipulating it with the grace of a professional. His coaches often remarked that he seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He was faster than everyone else, but more importantly, he was smarter. He understood space and timing before he even knew the words for them. His father's influence meant that Kylian lived and breathed football. He would spend hours watching videos of the world's best players, dissecting their movements and trying to replicate them on the concrete pitches of Bondi. Word of this wonder kid spread rapidly through the scouting networks of France. By the time he was a teenager, Kylian was selected for the prestigious Clairefontaine Academy. This institution is the Harvard of football, responsible for producing legends like Thierry Henry, Nicolas Anelka, and Blaise Matuidi. It was here that Mbappé truly began to understand the weight of his potential. He wasn't just a kid from the suburbs anymore. He was a national prospect. During his teenage years, his bedroom walls were a testament to his ambition. They were covered from floor to ceiling with posters of Cristiano Ronaldo. While other kids were out at parties, Kylian was studying Ronaldo's stepovers, his diet, and his work ethic. He dreamt of one day following in the footsteps of his idol to play for Real Madrid, but the path to the top required one more intermediate step. At age 14, the biggest clubs in the world came knocking. Chelsea flew him to London for a trial, and Real Madrid invited him to Spain, where he famously met Zinedine Zidane and took a photo with Ronaldo. Many thought he would jump at the chance to join a global giant immediately. However, the Mbappé family made a strategic decision that would change the course of football history. They chose AS Monaco. They believed that at Monaco, Kylian wouldn't just be another face in a massive academy. He would have a clear, documented path to the first team. It was a move based on pragmatism over prestige, and it paid off almost instantly. After just 2 years in the Monaco Academy, his progression was so rapid that it bordered on the absurd. He was brought in to train with the reserve team, but he was so dominant that it took only 3 weeks for the coaches to realize he belonged with the senior squad. On the 2nd of December, 2015, Kylian Mbappé made his professional debut for Monaco, coming on as a late substitute against Cannes. At 16 years and 347 days old, he became the youngest player in the club's history, breaking a record that had been held for 21 years by the legendary Thierry Henry. A few months later, he scored his first professional goal, once again breaking an Henry record to become the club's youngest ever scorer. Monaco knew they had a diamond, and they quickly secured him with his first professional contract. The 2016 to 2017 season remains one of the most romantic stories in modern football. Monaco, led by a revitalized Radamel Falcao and the teenage Mbappé, became the most exciting team in Europe. Kylian was the heartbeat of this side, playing with a fearlessness that terrified veteran defenders. He announced himself to the global audience in the Champions League, scoring in both legs against Manchester City in a high-scoring thriller that signaled the end of the old guard and the rise of the new. He followed this with a brace against Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals, where he debuted his now iconic celebration, standing tall with his arms crossed. He later revealed the celebration was a tribute to his brother Ethan, who did it after beating him at FIFA. By the end of that season, Monaco had done the impossible. They dethroned the state-funded Paris Saint-Germain to win the Ligue 1 title. Mbappé finished the campaign with 26 goals and 11 assists across all competitions. He was no longer a secret. He was a phenomenon. The summer of 2017 became a frenzy of speculation. Real Madrid was desperate for him, but Mbappé felt he had unfinished business in France. In a move that shook the sporting world, he joined PSG for a staggering €180 million, making him the most expensive teenager of all time. Because he was a kid from Paris, returning to the capital felt like a homecoming. He wanted to win for his city. Arriving at the Parc des Princes, he joined a super team alongside Neymar Jr., who had also just signed for a world record fee. The pressure was immense, but Mbappé's confidence was unshakable. He scored on his debut against Metz and continued to find the net with frightening regularity. He became the youngest player to reach 10 Champions League goals, proving that the bright lights of Paris hadn't blinded him. Despite the domestic dominance, including winning multiple league titles and domestic cups, the Champions League trophy remained elusive. PSG was frequently knocked out in the early rounds, leading many to wonder if Kylian was outgrowing the French league. However, any doubts about his big game temperament were silenced forever during the 2018 World Cup in Russia. This was the tournament where Mbappé transitioned from a star to a global icon. Wearing the legendary number 10 jersey, he led the French attack with a blend of speed and clinical finishing that the world hadn't seen since the days of Ronaldo Nazario. His performance against Argentina in the round of 16 was a masterpiece. He won a penalty after a 70-yard sprint and scored 2 goals to send Lionel Messi's team home. In the final against Croatia, he scored a stunning long-range goal, becoming only the second teenager after Pelé to score in a World Cup final. France were champions of the world, and at 19, Kylian had reached the pinnacle of the sport. True to his roots, he donated his entire €400,000 tournament bonus to a charity that helps children with disabilities participate in sports, remembering the struggle he saw every day in Bondi. Following the World Cup, Mbappé returned to a different reality. He was now the face of football. PSG gave him the number 7 jersey, and the expectations shifted from performing well to being the best in the world. He responded by winning the inaugural Copa Trophy for the best young player on the planet. The 2018 to 2019 season saw him score 33 league goals, a feat that made him the first French player to do so in decades. He was now outscoring Neymar and becoming the undisputed leader of the team. But as his fame grew, so did the heartbreak. In 2020, during the COVID-shortened season, PSG finally reached the Champions League final. It was the moment Kylian had dreamt of, bringing the big trophy back to Paris. But they fell 1-0 to Bayern Munich. Kylian, playing through an injury, missed a crucial chance. It was his first major professional failure, and it stung. The following year brought more pain at Euro 2020. In a shock exit against Switzerland, the game went to penalties. Kylian stepped up to take the decisive 5th kick. He missed. The backlash was immediate and vitriolic. For the first time, his own fans turned on him, and he was subjected to horrific racial abuse online. He considered leaving the national team, feeling unsupported. But like all great champions, he used the pain as fuel. He returned for the 2021 Nations League, scoring the winning goal in the final against Spain to secure another trophy for France. He was proving that his mental strength was just as formidable as his physical speed. By 2022, the saga of his contract reached a breaking point. Real Madrid believed they had finally secured their man. The world expected him to leave Paris. But in a shocking turn of events, following personal pleas from the French president and a contract offer of historic proportions, Kylian stayed. He signed a deal that gave him unprecedented power within the club, making him the highest-paid player in the world. Many criticized the move, claiming he had chosen money over legacy. Mbappé ignored the noise and went to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar with a point to prove. What followed was arguably the greatest individual performance in World Cup history. Mbappé was unstoppable, scoring goal after goal to lead France to a second consecutive final. The showdown against Argentina was billed as Messi versus Mbappé, the past versus the future. With France trailing 2-0 with 10 minutes to go, Kylian took over. He scored twice in 97 seconds to force extra time. When Messi scored again to make it 3-2, Kylian responded with another penalty to complete a hat trick, the first in a final since 1966. Though France ultimately lost on penalties, Mbappé walked away with the golden boot and the respect of every person on earth. He had scored 4 goals in World Cup finals before the age of 24. Back in Paris, the atmosphere had changed. The project of the three tenors, Messi, Neymar, and Mbappé, was failing to deliver the Champions League. Despite winning more league titles and breaking Edinson Cavani's record to become PSG's all-time leading scorer, the sense of an ending was in the air. In 2024, after years of will he or won't he, the inevitable finally happened. Kylian Mbappé announced he would leave PSG. His destination? The club of his dreams, Real Madrid. Kylian Mbappe's story is not just about football. It's about a boy from a forgotten town who refused to be a statistic. From the crime-ridden streets of Bondi to the gold-plated stadiums of Qatar and the hallowed grounds of the Bernabeu, he has remained a symbol of French excellence. He is a man who carries the discipline of his father, the fire of his mother, and the dreams of every kid playing on a concrete pitch. At 27, he has already won more than most legends do in a lifetime. But for the boy who wanted to be king, the journey is only just beginning. The face of football has a name, and that name is Kylian Mbappé.